We're live right now. So this is Ian.
And this is Jeff. We're coming to you from NIADA. Oh my gosh, too many letters. And we have a gentleman that was on the cover of I don't know if it's a show magazine or their own magazine here. Now, Luke, you're going to have to pronounce your last name because I don't want to get it wrong.
That's okay. I would rather it that way. Lunkenheimer, Luke Lunkenheimer.
Great. Thank you for taking the time with us. You're quite the celebrity here. And, we'll just start with just tell us your story, please.
Sure. So, to understand the story, you also have to understand the backstory, which is grandfather was a Ford dealer in the 50s and 60s. Dad worked for grandfather, then went off to work for some other another Ford franchise. They had the typical butting of heads as father and son will. He loved the business, so he stayed with Ford. He went to work for a Ford dealer. And I grew up in the business. Dad was coming home the late nights in retail. Mom was divorcing dad because of the car dealership life. We've all heard it before. And so I was the one in the family that wanted to make the fundamental change, right? I was going to break the cycle. Not that the car business was a bad thing, but in my household at that time, it certainly had its nefarious look, right? So I chose, I was as an athlete, I wasn't always this big, but I was an athletic guy. And I played football in high school. I did pretty well. I had a scholarship to play ball. That was the plan. I was going to get out of school. I was going to get my scholarship. I was going to be the first to get a degree and go do something. I think my sights was set on criminal justice and being a police officer. Wow. I sustained a pretty substantial injury to my shoulder playing defense in high school football. It was a very small school. There was like 80 kids in our graduating class. So we played both sides of the ball. So imagine Tom Brady playing free safety, right? The chances of injury, exactly.
Pretty high.
And you chuckle, and rightfully so. It's kind of funny to think that actually happens, but at the smaller schools, it's normal, modus operandi. So we thought nothing of it, but I took a pretty heavy hit to the shoulder, destroyed my throwing arm. And it's funny because it was a Division II school. I won't sit here and say that I was the next, Troy Aikman or Tom Brady.
But you really were.
I was a guy, very well could be in my mind. I was a good athlete, and I would have went on to have a pretty healthy career at a Division II school, had my school paid for, lived a nice collegiate life of athletics and fun, and then gone on to, to live life. And it's funny because in Division II athletics, they only give out academic scholarships. You can't get a full ride because you're a good ball player. But, amazingly enough, between the athletic director knowing a few people, and even though I was like a 80 average student, I was a scholar athlete that quarter, just managed to slip in, get my academic scholarship, and 95% of my college was paid for. Until that fateful day where I screwed up my shoulder, and then all of a sudden that academic scholarship went away. So I got a very early education on politics and bureaucracy and, academia and how things aren't always what they seem. I was a naive young country boy. So I was very depressed. It was a very difficult thing for me. Anybody that's seen the movie Varsity Blues back in the early 2000s, late 90s, it tells a story of a West Canyon, Texas high school where football is like life. The quarterback is God, big frog, small pond. That was me. So the thought and the prospect of not playing football, not having my college paid for, it was like, you watch that movie and you hear the screeching tires and the breaking glass sound effect and then the pin of the record coming off. And it's like, okay, what now? So, I had to reassess, and I decided to do what I knew I had to do, which was do what was familiar to me and try my hand at selling cars. So I did. I did very well at it for a year, was the number one, and I'm not being braggadocious. It's context. I was the number one salesman at the store right away, 3 months in, and, was the shining star at the dealership. So I got benefits very quickly. I got good money very quickly, and I decided to get a surgery to try to repair the shoulder and then segue my way back into college athletics. Surgery didn't go so well. The doctors kind of, after some time, took pity on the fact that they really didn't do a great job. I didn't get much percentage of my throwing arm back, and I was in a lot of pain. And at that time, opiates were not as highly regulated. Nowadays, everybody knows what they are. Everybody knows about the epidemic that is opiate drugs. But at that time, they were still kind of a novelty thing. You get your tooth pulled, you get a few hydrocodones, yippee-ki-yay. Well, at least it was where I came from. And they were very liberal with the writing of prescription opiates for relief of pain, we'll call it. And I learned very quickly that the euphoria that an opiate drug brings, it numbs the pain of your mind, it numbs the pain of your soul, it numbs the pain of your shoulder too. What a great trifecta. And I just off to the races, selling lots and lots of cars, making $100,000 a year, but by Wednesday of the next week having no money and having to borrow money for more drugs. So it was a very dark thing. It went on for about 10 years, honestly, an entire decade, from about 19 to 29. Until one day, it had just gotten so bad. And for people that are familiar with addiction, it's a downward spiral. No one ever goes, well, I dabbled with addiction and I'm good now. I'm working at Neiman Marcus at the front counter. It's you never go back to the family reunion year 2 when you see the guy just starting to use drugs, and it's like, oh, he's all better now. Good, glad to see he got off it. It's like, no, it's jails, institutions, or death. For me, it was jails. One day it got so bad and I needed money. I decided, okay, I'll rob this bank. I'll either get the money and go to a good designer rehab, meet a few celebrities, detox with Tommy Lee, and Nikki Sixx.
I don't know about that one.
That's what right? That's what I had figured out in my head. And it went very differently. I spent about a week getting really, really high. I was able to get my driver's license back because I wanted to go back in and sell cars again. And then that fateful Friday, the undercovers, came in and picked me up. Off to the Huskow I went, and it was jail. I did a couple of years behind bars. Came out with, I guess you would say, a new lease on life. In a radio show, we can't tell the whole story. There's so much that went on behind the walls. There's so much awakening of the mind and the spirit and the moral compass that happens when you get sober. But for intent, I just came out of there a better person. I was sober again, and I had so much shame of so many terrible things I did, between thievery and hurting people and bad relationships, that it was pretty much the whiteboard was completely clean. I couldn't go any further backwards. So I decided to, relieve myself of all that shame. I decided to relieve myself of the burden of all the things that I had done. And, I had said, okay, if I really, truly want to do the right thing, then I have to own that. I have to know that I'm going to catch some flack from people. But I have to let it bounce off me like bullets off of Superman. And I just got to keep pushing forward. And for some reason, at that point in my life, I believed that if I did the right thing, good things were going to start happening. And I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what changed fundamentally. It might have been the maturity of being almost a 30-year-old man at that point. It could have been desperation. I wanted to believe it so bad that I convinced myself.
I couldn't believe that you got out of jail sober. like all joking aside, really I don't know it firsthand, but you never hear about that. You hear you come out because somebody knew somebody and you're even more messed up.
You are how right you are. And that's why I said there's so much more to be told.
Sure.
It was probably more difficult to stay sober in prison than it was on the streets.
I can only imagine.
When you have the skill of manipulation and selling, and when I say manipulation, it's not always a nefarious word, right? When you have the skill to manipulate a situation to your benefit, and mind you, when you're a talented car salesman, and you go into this, cesspool of society, you can pretty much talk anybody into anything, with the exception of some of the real street smart guys, and them, you respect them as who they are and you move over here.
Sure.
But, I was able to work my way to the top of the totem pole in prison. And I don't mean, the head of the gang. I mean, like, that guy's got enough food in his bin, and that guy's got things figured out. He just does his own thing and he's left alone. And that's what afforded me the ability to stay in my cell and only come out for an hour and a half a day and hit the weight yard and then go back into my cell and read books and write letters. And, whether you want to call it praying or meditating or whatever, just making a plan for the future.
Sure.
At some point, there's this thing that happens when you're in prison. And they say you can live, in the prison, or you can live outside the prison. And they call the people that live outside the prison stress boxes, meaning I wonder who my girlfriend's sleeping with tonight. And I wonder if the kids have enough food. And I wonder this and I wonder that. And then there's the guys that have this real awkward piece about them, and they're very collected. And you see them kind of doing things, very simple things, coloring in coloring books. And they have these staunch routines that they stick to. Nope, I do my 35 pull-ups on Monday. I do my 35 sit-ups on Wednesday, and you don't mess with their routine. It's because they've managed to find a way to look forward to their days inside of prison, right? This Friday is the NBA Finals. We're going to cook a nice meal of ramen noodle soups and beef sticks with a Hershey bar to finish it off. And they look forward to it all week.
Sure.
That's what you have in there. So I was able to find a delicate balance of living outside when I needed to make sure that I was keeping tabs on the people that I cared about, because there were very few of those left that actually still cared about me. And then also living in there so I could still function, still deal with people effectively, and not get blindsided by the politics of prison, because there was a couple of times I almost lost my life as well. So
yeah, I can only imagine. So then where does it go from there?
So from there, it goes to Luke Lunkenheimer gets out of prison, and he is with a woman who, when he went into prison, dealt with him at his worst. Knew probably it wasn't a lifelong marriage, but knew that he wanted to give this woman as many months as she gave him in there. So I made a concerted effort to, to be with her, to help her raise her children. And I was a good man to her. I was, at that point. I wasn't before, but I was at that point, and it was almost like I was, trying to right a wrong, and she knew it, and we both knew it wasn't slated forever, but I made sure she had what she needed. I made sure that I righted my wrongs. I made sure that I set her up, and then I moved along. During this time, I was finding myself, right? I was dealing with situations like people from my past coming to me and offering me free drugs and come party with us, man. You poor thing, you've been sober for so long. Let's get you back on the bandwagon so you can relax a little bit. And near misses to, attacking the weight so vigorously because it was the only thing I had to be addicted to. I'm an addict. It's who I am. And anybody that knows addiction knows that the only way you survive addiction is to stay an addict. And let me rephrase that, to accept and embrace your addiction, right? It's kind of like you can have breast cancer, okay? Or you can have testicular cancer, and you can try to pretend it's not there, and you cannot do the things that you should be doing medically to try to keep it at bay. You cannot go to your treatments, and you'll die a quick death.
Right.
Or you can understand that you're dealing with a vice. You can deal with it. You can try to live the best quality of life that you have and try to put things in life in place to, circumnavigate the bad parts of it, but still, try to embrace the good parts of life that you still have. That's what an effective sober addict does, is they keep the fact that they're an addict very close to their heart. They don't ever forget about it, because much like cancer, it can come out of remission very quickly and aggressively and back worse than it was before, and it can kill you very quickly. And these are literal words, you know what I mean? I just chose to do that. I think that's part of, the reason I had success. But moving forward to your question, I did the 9 to 5 thing. I got on a Centro bus. You guys are from Canada. Centro is the local transit, they run a certain schedule. The job that I had landed had me getting on a bus at 4:45 in the morning to arrive at the hub at 5:45, to wait till 6:30 to ride another bus to get to the job at 7:30, to wait an hour for the first guy to get there at 8:30, to open the doors at 9 to start work. So the work day didn't start till 9, but my morning started at 4:45 getting on the bus, only to come home catching the last bus that could possibly get me home, not getting home till 9 o'clock at night. So that was tough, but I'd convinced myself it's what I needed to do. And it was almost like self-inflicted punishment. I was like, you're going to deal with this, man. You did bad for so long. You're going to deal with this. And when you maintain that level of commitment, people take notice, when they see somebody is just mentally invested in something, they can't be wavered. And you're going, you really do this routine every single day? Yes, I do. Why? Because if I don't, I go bad, and I can't go bad. Let me ask you a question, man. Would you consider selling for me? I can have somebody pick you up and bring you to work. Because people recognize tenacity, right? They also recognize good moral compass. They, when I say people, I mean generally business owners, people with financial success. They know who they are and what it took them to get where they are. So that when they recognize those attributes in somebody else, especially in this post-corona society that we live in, when nobody wants to work, that wasn't the case then. I'm just referencing how real it is now. They see those qualities in people, and they want to employ them. I know I do. As the owner of my dealerships, I see people that mimic any of the attributes that I had at that time. It's like, listen, man, you got to come work for me. You're not making enough. You'll make more with me. And you try to recruit that talent. So it moves from there into working for a guy finally. So a guy reached out to me, and I knew he was not a good person, but the opportunity that he presented me with was, I couldn't pass it up. He's like, hey, I got my dealer's license when you were in jail. This is a guy I used to sell cars with, a known drug addict, okay? So I don't do drugs anymore. I got my dealer license. I've got a line of credit. I've got some cars. I've got a Winnebago trailer and a Swigo. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm way too heavy into 4 cars. Here's what I'm proposing to you. I will pay off all your fines, get you your license back, give you a dealer plate to use, give you one of the cars to drive, give you access to my entire business, the line of credit, everything. You run the thing, we'll split whatever you make. To a guy fresh out of prison, it doesn't get much better than that. Who's going to come to you with that offer, right? So even though I know it was too good to be true, I jumped in head first because I had been recently fired by that same collision center that I was so, rigorously going back to work for and so devoted to. They fired me because they found out that I robbed a bank, even though I disclosed it on my application. I later found out that was illegal to do, but what it really boiled down to was people that were coming in and out of there were recognizing me. And, oh, you're employing that bank robber guy. And the guy just didn't have the chutzpah to say, yes, he's a good employee, works hard for me, and that's what it is. Which to an extent I understand, which to an extent I'm bitter about, but it's long in the past. It is what it is. So I start running this dealership for this guy, and we go from a Winnebago trailer in a very rural part of Oswego, New York, which is up in the sticks. Nothing like, you guys have up there in Canada, but it's rural for us. Doing very well there. I approach him, we should rent a bigger lot. We should get a bigger line of credit. We're really doing well. His wife was actually the owner of the business. The license was in her name. So I appealed to her and said, do you really want to make some serious additional income? I can really make this thing go, because I had the confidence, because I was doing it and it was working. So we got a bigger lot. We started making more. I believe in 11 months fresh out of prison, I think, I know I made like $86,000 and we were splitting everything down the middle. So it certainly wasn't a pittance. We were making a decent amount of money for hustling a few used cars. And then I went to the bank to withdraw what I had left in the bank for my income taxes, because I was a 1099 private contractor, and he had stolen it. So, 35% of my income at that time that I had left there to pay my taxes with and meet my tax burden. The girl that I was dating at the bank at the time actually was like, I don't think you understand this, but that money's not in there. And so I got robbed for like $38,000. Obviously walked away from that scenario and back to the drawing board. Luckily for me, at about that time, word got to an old employer of mine, okay, who I won't bring up just because probably not the professional thing to do, but he was the owner of 7 local rust-proofing franchises to my area. I had worked for him before. I had kind of reinvented his sales floor. His top performers were selling $70,000, $80,000 worth of product a year. I think, tremendous amount more than that, 7, 8-fold what they were selling. I came in and sold for him, kind of rewrote the way the selling happened there. And then started training some other guys to do that too. So he was very grateful of what I did back then, but I did steal from him at the time. I was rust-proofing drug dealers' vehicles to get drugs and stuff like that. So he fired me at the time. But this is a good man, a man that is very, God-fearing. He saw that I was really making a concerted effort. And he also knew the level of talent that I had, that he, wished that I had a good moral compass back before. So he reached out to me and he said, listen, I think you're better. I hope you're better. If it weren't for second chances, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I want to offer you your job back. And the timing couldn't have been better. It was an opportunity to make 6 figures, segued directly from the job I had just lost. I didn't work for him for 60 days. And he came into my office. He put his feet up on my desk. He asked me about 3 key questions about the business that I was in with this other gentleman. Wrote them down on a piece of legal paper, folded them up and put them in his pocket. And I wasn't really sure why he did that, but I kind of just dismissed it, whatever. The next day he comes into my office and he folds that same piece of paper out, writes a new set of figures that were more lucrative for me. They gave me more working capital and had a lower rent, and says, would you like another business partner? And exactly the same look I'm like, I stole from you, man. Like, what are you talking about? And he says, Luke, it's a yes or a no. You've got 24 hours. What's it going to be? I said, I'll talk to you in 24 hours. Let me at least, respect the girlfriend that I have at the time, which is my wife now. Yeah. We were in a new relationship. And I went home and I talked to her and I was like, well, this can't be real. I truly was pinching myself, like the old fashioned pinch your skin. And, but it was real. And he saw something in me that I didn't know existed. I knew there was talent. I knew there was, and I don't mean to sound braggadocious, but I knew that I was good at some stuff and I was good at selling, but he saw something else. And lo and behold, several years later, that cultivated into now 3 car dealerships. I've bought him out. We're opening a 4th. We do about $11 million a year in sales. And wow, now I'm trying to help people.
I have to tell you something. Please. The biggest thing of all the stuff you said was the fact that after getting hooped, numerous times. And you know, it's a well-publicized thing about addictions, because your need for something means you got to do something to get it.
Mhm.
But this guy recognized that. But the interesting part is that you went home and you went, something's wrong here, but there's something really right about this.
Mhm.
And actually, you got somebody that had something really going, not just for you, but had something in his head that said, recognize the talent.
I couldn't agree with you more. To this day, he's a man that I don't understand completely, but I can tell you that he's worth probably, you know, and I might be doing him a disservice with these kind of figures, but probably $30 to $40 million. He's got several successful franchises. He sold some, bought some. He's just one of those guys that knows his craft and continues to just score time and time again because he's so good at what he does. And he was such a firm believer in second chances, and he really truly believed that I was better. And he also knew that I could, you know, close. That's got a lot to do with it, you know. So he gave me the opportunity, and lo and behold, he was right. So I'm grateful for that.
It wasn't about the beauty is, and you know, I admire this man. I admire you because you made a difference.
Thank you.
Period. Not just for yourself, but period. Because for people to look at and say, hey, but you got to admire this guy, because so many successful people, and especially in the car business and car related business, it's all their favorite song is me, 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 me.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy said, yeah, in return, what he did was he helped himself by helping you help him.
It was a tremendous risk that he took. And, you know, in the beginning, I just remember hearing it from every corner of my personal globe. You know, I overheard somebody talking to, you know, him. I don't want to say his name. And, you know, they were saying about you, you know, did he know you were a bank robber? Did he know you did this? Does he know that you robbed him back and blah, blah, blah. And the way they said he responded was he looked at them and said, I've made a decision. And if that decision is wrong, why don't you come to me in a year or two and tell me how wrong that decision was? In the meantime, I'm going to tell you, sit back and watch, baby. That's what he said to him. And he's a very animated guy. And if you knew him, you'd understand. But, you know, he does all his own commercials. He's got a real live voice. You know, people know in Syracuse cars rust. They know who we're talking about. But he's a beautiful human being, and I'm very thankful for him. And he saw, he was sure of it. He knew what he saw. And he knew that if I was better, it was going to be something. And he was right.
Yeah, and it's important in life. I mean, you obviously always have challenges in life, no matter how hard or less hard they are, usually hard. Mm-hmm. But it's what you learn from them. But more importantly, it takes a lot of an individual to say, listen, I believe in this person so much. The past is the past. Let's move forward together and let's help this person. And I think a lot of people, to your point earlier on, yeah, I really should have told that person that asked the question that that's not who this person is. But they just don't have the what to do that, and they're more like, well, yeah, it's easier to just get rid of this person, and that's a mistake. Like, you have to have ethics yourself. Sometimes you fall down, it's okay. It's getting back up that's important. I mean, we were watching Sugar Ray Leonard, and he was talking about his successes, but he also talked about the fights where he clearly lost, but also learned a few things, and that to me was a big thing, because you don't hear too many professional boxers who say, yeah, okay, I won 50 times, but don't worry about those 2 or 3 that I lost. Let's not talk about those, right?
That's why he's a legend, brother.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I gave my presentation just not so long ago, you know, I noticed as I was trying to connect with the people in the room, there was a lot of people that were really struggling with what I was saying. You know, I was telling them, you have to get comfortable with your flaws. You have to understand that if you're not what society calls front of cosmopolitan good looking, that's what you are. Okay. I graduated high school a pimple-faced, skinny, they called me monkalepsy, okay? Because I was long-armed, I was acne-faced, and I would fall asleep in class because I stayed up too late playing video games. That's who this guy that you see in front of you was in high school. And that's what I dealt with, which probably lends itself to why I am so rigorously about being big and muscular now. There's probably some of my molding stage that comes through.
So was that during the football days, or was that post when in jail?
No, this was during high school. This was in the football days. I said this in my presentation as well. I was a great football player, but I was very underdeveloped physically. I was a late bloomer. So I caught a lot of flack in high school for a lot of things. And, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, referring to my presentation to that point, it's one of these things where I believe that the peace that I experience on a daily basis now, and the reason that I'm able to just continue to relentlessly pursue success and try to realize my potential, because that's my trajectory, right? People say, well, what is your goal? What is your this? What is your that? My potential. I am on a relentless pursuit of my potential. And they say, well, what do you think that is? I said, well, I'm shooting for 1 trillion. There's not a lot of trillionaires right now. In fact, last I read, there wasn't any. Maybe there has since become one. But I'm just going to go for that.
Yeah.
You really think you're going to become a trillionaire? Well, hey, if I fall a little bit short, I think I'll end up okay. So it's about getting comfortable with the things in life that are uncomfortable. It's about getting comfortable with yourself. People see celebrities and they see bodybuilders and they see whomever that are,
And bodybuilder celebrities.
Exactly. That are in the upper echelon of society, and they think to themselves, man, I wish I could have that level of self-confidence. I wish I could just wake up knowing I was king ding-a-ling, when in reality, these are some of the most self-conscious people on the face of the earth, which is why they function the way they do, and they must be in the limelight. They must look the best, If you can get comfortable with the perils of society, if you can get comfortable with the fact that you're not going to please everybody, if you can get comfortable with the fact that you're going to make mistakes on a daily basis, and just gain some peace knowing that the people at the top of the food chain are really truly no different than you, it's just execution. It's the fact that they get up and they push every single day. Somebody like Sugar Ray Leonard, he told you about his losses because those are some of his best attributes. That's where he did his learning, but people don't want to recognize that. They want to only talk about the positive things. I was in that room talking to people about defecating on myself and throwing up in my own arms, curl up in a pile in the fetal position on the floor of a jail cell. Those are not things I'm excited to share with people. They don't make me look good, but there's someone in that audience that went, man, I've been there. I know what he's talking about. Or my sister was there. I know what he's talking about. And I said this in the speech, and I'll say it again now. If I came out here all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, and I changed one life, it was worth the trip, because until as a society, and I don't mean to get so grandiose about this, but I truly believe this, until as a society, we start truly trying to help each other, we're in a very weird place as a world. The United States as a country, I'm not familiar with Canada. I know that there's things going on politically, and we don't ever want to get political.
We're U.S. light.
What's that?
We're U.S. light. The only difference is we have a different view on guns.
There you go. U.S. light. I like that.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer that you can solve so many problems by just having a little bit of heart. You know what I mean? Just backing down your guard a little bit. Just go into a situation. Don't worry about the social media likes. Don't worry about the lip injections. Don't worry about the engagement on your Instagram page. Just go, all right, I want to meet this person. I want to engage this person. And if I can help them in some way, I want to do that. If they can help me in some way, I'd like to receive that. And then hopefully we're both better because of it. It's so really fundamentally simple, but I think the media plays a major role in screwing that up. And I think
not the media.
Right, those good guys.
You mean they only tell one side of the story? Really?
Listen, brother, we could go down a whole rabbit hole there, but it's really just very simple, any of it. So
it's the old-fashioned car business.
Mhm.
And when I got into the car business, it's all about you. You gotta conquer. You gotta sell that car no matter what. You gotta get it done. The dealers were like that. If somebody helped somebody, they were like, why are you helping me?
Yeah.
What's in it for you?
What's in it for you? Yeah.
And to hear that from somebody that, and I can understand why, because you got by with help. You had somebody that said to you, here's a chance for you to do what you can do.
Mhm.
And, frankly, where would Tom Brady be without Kraft?
100%.
Honestly, where would he be? He's phenomenal talent. He's amazing. The guy can hit a drone, 300 feet off the back of a boat at 42 years old.
Yep.
But he'd have been nowhere without that guy that gave him the opportunity.
100%.
I'm an F1 fan. Lewis Hamilton's the greatest driver ever,
Mhm.
but the car sucks last year.
Mhm.
Now he's not winning.
Mhm.
So you can't be there alone. So good for you.
Thank you, brother.
Good for you.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Well, no, it's true, because no bull, no crap. I'm sure you're fed it all the time. You made a big difference. What you said to me really, really hit me to heart,
Well,
because
means a lot.
that's I'll be the guy that said change my life. But no, good for you. Good for you.
I really appreciate that, first of all, because what some people, you know, they see you say something like that to me, and they're like, oh, that's nice for him to validate him like that. They don't understand what that means, man. You're talking to a guy that was in a prison cell, lonely, wondering if I was going to see the light of day again. I'm going to get emotional. I apologize. But to your point about the help and the assistance from Kraft, okay, this gentleman, you know, he made just shy of $1 million in the 4 years that he partnered with me, okay? So, you know, when the people say, oh, that was nice of him to help that guy, well, I also helped him add $1 million to his till, okay? Now, what is the dichotomy there? It is this: when his intentions were not wholly selfish, when he said, hey, I see something here. I see an opportunity to monetize, but I see an opportunity to monetize by doing something that's morally virtuous. It's bulletproof, okay? Because let me say something to you that this will blow your mind, or if not, it'll blow my mind again hearing it out loud. He comes to me and he goes, okay, what was your split with the other guy? I said 50-50 right down the middle. He goes, okay, ours is going to be 55-45. I said, no problem. I understand. You want the lion's share. You're putting up the money. He goes, no, you're going to get 55.
Yeah.
I said, why am I going to get 55? He says, because Luke, a long time ago, you stole from me. And I know why you stole from me. It's because you sold me multi-millions of dollars worth of products, but I only paid you 10%. That's because that's what the pay plan was designed to do. He goes, but somebody like you felt like you were getting slighted. You felt like, this guy's never seen anybody like me. I'm coming in here and I'm performing light years ahead of all these other guys. I should be getting a bigger piece of the action. And he was absolutely right. I stole from him because I needed drugs, but the real fundamental root cause was, I'm like, man, this T-R-I-C-K. Look how much freaking money I'm making this guy, and he's paying me the same as everybody else. I should be getting a bigger chunk. And when he said that to me, I was silent for like a minute straight. It felt like an eternity. And I looked back at him and I said, are you sure? And he said, I've never been more sure about anything. He goes, and then he seen me again. He goes, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do that for you. But if you steal from me again, you're going to wear concrete shoes and you're going to go to sleep. And he meant that too. And if you knew him, you'd understand that was real. But the fact of the matter is, to your point, what he was doing was a selfless act, you know, tied to a selfish act.
Yes.
Okay. And if we can operate the same way in business and say, listen, to your point about the old car business, right? You go to somebody, listen, I just want to help you get the right color. And listen, if I don't have it, I'll locate the one and tell you what dealership it's at. They're looking at you like, okay, where's the camera? What's the shtick?
Yeah.
You're not just going to do something nice for me. When in reality, when you approach somebody that way, you know, you'd be so people, you probably wouldn't. So many people would be amazed to find that customer will go, where's it at? Well, the blue one's down at 9 Ford in Oneida. You said you had a black one, right? Well, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Why don't you show me that black one? Well, I thought you wanted blue. I did want blue. I wanted to buy blue, but what I want more is to buy from somebody that I can trust and I care about and I know is going to take care of me, because that's the consumer's mindset. And listen, man, if it's going to be the same cost, I can deal with black as long as I know that when I need something, you're going to pick up the phone. And that's what the consumer wants. And when people start to realize that and they pair true, honorable, good moral compass with vicious tenacity and salesmanship, they're bulletproof.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember years ago, I sold cars retail for 10 years myself. My family has a history going back 100 years in the business, owning dealerships and there. I still remember a guy came in, he got a flat tire on the lot because the salesman had taken off the license plate with leaf screws in the parking lot because they're lazy to pick them up. So he got a flat tire, helped the guy out, changed the tire, did end up buying a car. My boss chewed me out for a good half an hour. What are you doing? He didn't. I said, listen, the guy needed help. We caused the problem because we didn't clean up our own freaking lot. Why would we not help the guy?
Right.
And to me, it wasn't about selling the guy a car. It was like, listen, the guy is in need of help. He's at a car dealership. Maybe he services us. Maybe he buys in the future. But that short-sighted, like, oh, what are we doing today attitude is a mistake.
It is. And people don't understand you can do both. Like you can absolutely do both. And that's what I do sales training as well. I teach my salesmen. I also have a small group of people that I teach, and I'm growing a sales training brand. That's where a lot of my passion lies, for exactly this reason. People don't understand, not only can you do both, you should do both, and you will be much more effective if you do. And it's funny, you go to and I won't name names, okay, but some of these characters are here at this convention, and we need to pay homage to them. They're great salesmen. They've done tremendous job selling, but some of them are, I believe, the best. And I'm not throwing shade here. I'm just speaking on fundamentals. Not the best as far as conveying the knowledge to the next guy, right? They've got a major trophy case, and every one of them should be respected for it. But as far as conveying that information to the next guy, I don't know if that's exactly the route that we should be traveling. because to your point, we have the guy behind the desk. There was an up on the lot. Why didn't you close him? Well, he ran over a screw in our parking lot that our guys dropped, and he blew a tire. So essentially, it cost him money to enter our facility. I was just plugging the tire and helping the guy put his spare on, right? And there's a way that you can marry those two things, right? You get the guy's name and number, and you say, listen, man, not for nothing, but I want to report back to my desk and let them know at least I exuded some salesmanship here. When are you in the market? You were driving through here for a reason, right? Was it pickup trucks or SUVs? Oh, it was pickup trucks. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. What's it going to cost you to replace that tire? I want to try to help you. What do you think if we actually doubled the cost of what it would cost you to replace the tire, because I feel bad about it, and apply that as a discount towards a new one? Could I at least get you to stop and take a test drive? That guy's going to think for a moment, and he's going to do it. Okay. 9 times out of 10, he's going to do it. And that's how we should be training salespeople.
100%. I mean, the funniest thing about that story was the guy ended up coming back. I worked at an auto mall, so there was 15 dealerships, and after they go to 5, their head's spinning with brochures and questions and whatever. So by the end of that round, and there's 14 dealerships, they went to the Honda, Toyota, Ford, whatever. So by the end of that loop, they're going, car, which car? Don't know. Okay, so what are you doing here today? Oh, I'm looking at cars. Okay, so are you at the end of your loop, or are you starting a loop? Or so, I mean, to your point, I mean, he wasn't at the point to buy a car, but he was still looking for one.
Yep.
So what I always used to say to customers that came in, because I worked at an auto mall, is, okay, are you at the beginning stage of looking at cars? Are you test driving them? Are you ready to make a call? Because I can help you either way. But what I don't want to do is go to the close if you're just looking around, and really you're honestly just looking around because your head's spinning already because you've looked at 15 cars today.
100%.
From different brands, and you have no idea.
Yeah, and that was back in the days when people went to 5 dealerships.
Yeah. Now they're going to one.
But these days, what's funny is they walk in, and for your average person out there, can't tell the difference between, let's pick, a Civic, a Corolla, a Mazda 3, and a Hyundai Accent, Elantra.
Yeah.
They can't tell the difference.
How much difference is there really?
There really isn't any difference. And except they know the Toyota, because Toyota's good, Honda, good car, whatever. But they remember, and we know this is a cliche, they remember the salesperson.
Absolutely.
They remember the person. I have a philosophy, I always had a philosophy. There's a judgment day. Everybody has one, and that's not when somebody looks down and up elevator, down elevator. It's what those that you mean something to think about you.
Yes.
And you said you had people when you were in jail that stuck with you. Think about that for a minute, because most people have people that abandon them.
Yes.
There might be their mother. Mothers always stick with you. But other than that, who knows? And you had people there, and you paid them back when you came out. This guy, I can't keep... I'm so impressed, not just with your story, but the fact that he said, look, you stole from me. I know why you stole from me. The reality was he realized that you stole from him because you needed money. Not even because he paid you little, but who knows if he did or not. It's hard. I don't know the whole detail of that. But if you think about this, how many business people would not pay a 45% interest rate or 55% interest rate? And they're pissed at 12, even today. And then you think about, they're going to give you this, and he made millions off of you by giving you 55%. So this guy's way smarter. And as I said earlier, he helped you. He helped himself by helping you help him help you.
You're absolutely right. He did so well in that investment, because the investment was not simply a selfish business investment.
That's right.
Right. He said, I spot a talent. I can cultivate this. I can help somebody. Let me try to help this guy, because I think I can marry these two things. I think I can help this guy, and I think I can monetize it. And I believe this individual is, and let's pay respect to reality. I am an above average closer. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to brag. I'm saying that he didn't just pick the average Joe and do this thing,
of course not.
He saw somebody that he knew was highly effective, right? Yeah. That showed up on his radar. And people encounter that daily, right? We have these people that we remember. And a lot of times the very colorful characters are the ones that get locked into addiction, and they go down that road. Because generally, for somebody to have the personality traits that I do, to be the outgoing, the very tenacious, wordy salesperson, they're either A, incredibly comfortable and confident with themselves, mostly because they've usually been through a very tragic scenario, or B, are going through a very tragic scenario. You know, you guys are car guys. You guys know the guys I'm talking about, the 50 car a month guys, the 40 car a month guys who are also closet crackheads, who are also have the weird vices where they leave and go to the red light district at the end of the day. You know, these are they're nefarious actors a lot of time, but they're always somebody with a vice because that's what it takes to get that level of productivity. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what this gentleman did is he said, okay, this is a colorful, you know, extra personality. He went to a very, very dark place. I believe he's better. You know, let's give a litmus test here. Let's see what we can do. And to your point, you're exactly right. His intentions were not completely selfish, and the dividends that it paid. And, you know, to that point, not only did I not steal from him, when a customer would give us a tip, when we would make a wholesale score, when, you know, I'd book a scrap car for X and we get a few extra bucks cash. I mean, I literally kept an envelope of righteous money. You know, it wasn't slippery, it was righteous money. And then at the end of the month, I would bring him the envelope, and I remember the first time I did it, he's like, oh, what is this? What is this?
Where did this money come from?
Exactly.
What did you agree to
he's
for this
thinking
money?
a headlock. He's thinking a drug deal. He's like, what is this money? And I explained.
Wait, he put you in a headlock?
No, I'm saying he's thinking I put somebody in a headlock to get that money. So I remember telling him, I remember saying, you know, don't worry. This is real righteous money. And you know what? And there's a story in there too. So I give him this envelope full of money, and it was like $1,200 or something like that. He said, what is this? I said, well, you know, we had some cars that I booked for X as scrap cars. Scrap went up. So I had already booked them. We'd already shipped them. But when we got paid for them, you know, it was this much over. And he gave me a check for that and gave me cash for the rest, just because that's, you know, what business people do sometimes. And he's in the cash business, and it was righteous for us to receive the cash. I said, so this is kind of extra money. This is cash. You know, there was $2,400. I kept 12. Here's your 12. And he looks at me and he goes, okay. He goes, so here's what I'm going to do. And I think somewhere deep down inside, he questioned if it was righteous money, and rightfully so, given my past. He takes the money out and he writes DR on it for Dominican Republic. He took this money, and his wife was Dominican, okay, and they were involved in a church in the DR. And what he did with this money is he used it to buy school supplies, food, ice cream, treats for school children that didn't have these things in the DR, all $1,200 of it. And he just donated it. And I remember looking at him and I'm like, I know that you do what you say you're going to do. You're really giving that. And mind you, I'm out of prison. Got very few nickels to rub together. I'm still scratching and clawing my way to a decent existence. And this man's taking $1,200 and going, oh, let's buy pencils and school bags for kids. I'm like, no, let's buy like clothes and food for myself. And I'm thinking to myself, and then of course the criminal in me was like, wow, man, should I really have given it to him? And then, you know, the good moral individual in me that had been cultivated recently was like, no, we've gotten to where we are now, Luke, by doing the right thing. Don't you dare stop that now. Get that thought out of your head. And that was one of maybe 2 or 3 times only that I can remember that demon came back tapping on my shoulder.
I have to tell you something.
Sure.
Firsthand experience, and from almost everybody I've known in the car business that has done that. Boss, they gave me cash for this. Here is the cash. That demon in the back of their mind says, you'll never know.
You'll never know.
But you know something? The difference is between the old Luke, the new Luke, and a lot of these people is they give it. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is this doing what this guy did? People they don't need that money. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make any difference in their life.
No,
and they give it away. But a lot of people in this business, and that's why, you know, even though you had some bad things, you had some great luck because you dealt with a real gentleman because he did what he said he was going to do.
Yep.
And that's, this is as much his story as it is yours.
I agree with you.
And you should get his permission to use his name.
I will try.
There you go.
Just to cap that story off, I took 200 of the dollars and I looked at him and I very reluctantly, but like to make it across his desk, it took like a minute and a half. And he's kind of looking at me, and it was like this, you know, gun duel scene where it's his eyes, my eyes, his eyes, my eyes, sweat dripping down my face, back to him.
Do I hear a Clint Eastwood?
No. So I reach over and I hand it to him. I go, take this. And he goes, you sure? I said, I'm sure. He takes it. He goes, what's this for? I said, it's for the kids in the DR. I said, I cannot walk out of this office knowing that you just took all that money and gave it to them. I can't afford to give all of it. And he goes to give it back. And I said, no. I said, this is found money. I don't need this money to survive the same way you don't need that money to survive. I said, but proportionately, it means a lot more to me than it does to you. So I believe the ratio is somewhere around 10 to 15%. So I'm giving you that. I want you to put it towards that cause. And I'm going to take what I need to take. To this day, I donate to that same group of kids every year.
Yeah.
And to this day, his wife sends me pictures of the kids with the book bags and the ice creams and the stuff to say thank you, all off of a $200 investment. Changed lives.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, and it's not to say that people don't earn a good living in the car business, they do. And it's not to say people in the car business aren't great people, they are, at least for the most part. But at the end of the day, what we don't talk enough about in the car business, and we did an interview this morning with a young lady who helps raise money for cancer with other car dealers for kids. And she lost one of her kids to cancer. And it was really interesting because we've done shows on giving back in the car business because there's a lot of focus on from the media, we won't mention any names, about how awful the car business is. But the reality is car dealers are local community businesses that give back to communities at scale, some more than others. But at the end of the day, they don't have to do that. They choose to do that because they care.
Yes.
100%. So that's a great story. Thanks for sharing.
Cool.
Thank you, brother.
Well, I thank you so much. You made my conference for me.
Oh, brother.
I mean,
you're going to make the big man
honestly,
cry.
Before this morning, I hadn't heard about you. I can't remember how we connected with you today.
Gentleman over there.
The gentleman
Special
over there.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's Rich. He's a good dude.
But first of all, to get on the cover of something like this is a big deal. But secondly, legitimate. You're not on there because you sold more than everybody else in Oswego, New York. Okay, or Syracuse or whatever. You did it because you did something for everybody else by doing something for you. That same hokey thing. It's not hokey, it's true, but good for you. And I got to tell you, looking at you, you want to get scared. Nobody's told you this. And this guy that you're we're in business with, you bought it or whatever, he sleeps at night, but he also doesn't have to worry about a shadow coming behind him going, you. So thank you.
No worries. Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
No problem. And this is a live broadcast. So just in case you didn't know, it's a live broadcast. If you are interested and have questions or comments, feel free to reach out to the show and we'll be happy to answer the questions we can. Sometimes we can. And it's Auto Hub Show live in Vegas. Thanks to NIADA for putting us up for this and for obviously our wonderful guest.
Thank you, brother.
For all his stories.
And Luke, who I still won't try to pronounce your last name.
Lunkenheim.
Everybody
says Luke.
The man that helped him will remain nameless for obvious reasons.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.